Bore da, good morning. Mae'n bleser ymuno chi heddiw fel rhan o gynhadledd bwyd a FFERMIO Cymru. It's a pleasure to join you at the Wales Real Food and Farming Conference and to participate in today's discussions focused on diversity. Despite some progress, agriculture is one of the least diverse professions in the UK, an increasingly divisive arena. Most people will have experienced exclusion by virtue of age, religion, gender, geography, ethnicity and sexuality, or as a result of polarising and combative discourse against and between those working in the sector. Leave versus remain, vegans versus meat eaters, food production versus nature restoration. For me, that feeling of being other, thinking differently, not fitting a box, feels especially pronounced in an agricultural context. Despite growing up and being a member of a family farm, I face comments of not belonging, of being unwanted, of being too different. Comments that have often silenced me. As a young person, I'm not alone in feeling this way. Research undertaken by the Rural Youth Project in 2018 found that only 13% of the young rural respondents felt like they had their voice heard in their rural community. I feel within the food and farming sector and in the wider rural community a desire to neatly arrange people into categories with one label. But most people do not fit into neat boxes, rather tick multiple boxes. We are multi-hyphenated. James Rebanks, farmer and writer, describes himself as a chameleon, jumping between the roles of farmer and writer. On struggling to make a living on the land, without wanting to, James went away to study and work. Admitting that he's taken a while to feel comfortable with that other side, he realised that those experiences mean that he's a better communicator. And while he used to shy away from that, he says, "I'm a strange creature, a mix of different things, and it probably isn't serving me too badly." In Estonia, there's a culture of encouraging young people to leave and to come back, completely or partially, because when they do come back, they inevitably bring new skills, ideas and perspectives. Our lives are increasingly multi-local, working, studying and living across rural and urban areas. Despite being viewed as a contemporary phenomena of digital nomads, multi-locality has been around for a long time. Consider shepherds moving between summer and winter pastures. The longer we see people as uniform, we risk losing the opportunity to bring vital services and lifeblood to rural areas, to farming and food production. A recent survey commissioned by the Country Land and Business Association revealed that 1 in 2 18 to 34-year-olds want to swap the city for the countryside. The world of work is changing, as is the way we learn, shop and socialise, accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. The way people see and value food is changing. More than 1 million people signed a National Farmers Union petition to protect British food standards earlier this year. The desire to learn how food is produced and its impact on the health of people and the planet is growing. The nature of farming is changing. Food production is changing. Vertical farming, urban and peri-urban food production, regenerative and agroecological food production are recent trends, but they are not at all new. Like the concept of multi-locality, principles of these practices can be traced back to ancient times. A comment stood out to me recently from the chat box of a webinar. It said, "Farming is changing and some will not survive the changes." This holds uncomfortable truths and falsehoods for me. I agree that farming is changing and it needs to change. And while we must do better to encourage innovative thinking, we mustn't turn our backs on those that are already working the land. Thinking of my family's farm, of the generations that worked the land before us, of helping neighbours with harvests, of hedge laying with my father. These are skills and ways of working that are vital to deploying nature-based solutions. As part of Farming Today's Rethink Week, Teleri Fielden, a hill farmer in Snowdonia, explored the importance of intergenerational exchange and cooperation. She said, "I'm passionate about farming with nature. I was lucky to be part of environmental discussions, but at the same time having the mentoring from traditional hill farmers. They'd farmed the land their whole lives. They knew the ins and outs of it and could keep me grounded, so to speak." She highlighted that there has been a lack of emphasis of the knowledge within rural communities. It is generations of skilled people who have harnessed the land to create a livelihood, who have sculpted these landscapes and added value to them. There's a lot to gain from injecting knowledge handed down the generations into young, enthused people, fusing energy with experience. In the words of Joe Cox, the MP tragically murdered in 2016, "We have far more in common than that which divides us." When we set our differences aside, our common ground grows. The more perspectives we can explore, the more productive outcomes we are likely to reach. We are tapestry, rural, plural, in the words of Tom Jones, farmer and former member of the European Economic and Social Committee. Over the last few years, I've welcomed fair trade farmers to Wales and to our family farm in mid-Wales. Most recently, Jennifer Wambeze, a coffee farmer and the vice chair of the 3,000 member strong Mount Elgon Agroforestry Community Cooperative in Uganda. Every discussion between fair trade and Welsh farmers has concluded with realising the challenges faced, from volatile markets, disease and pest control, climate change, are often the same, though they may be tackled differently. There's opportunity here for exchange, to learn from one another. Creating an inclusive sector means providing everyone, no matter who they are, with equal access to opportunities and removing cultural barriers in the form of discrimination and intolerance. Think to yourself, how easy is it to disagree with your neighbour or customer? Do your conversations mirror similar ideas to your own? We exist within communities, within landscapes, within foodscapes. No man is an island. Working with people who do not share the same interests, values and vocabulary isn't always easy, but a dialogue based on respect is essential for covering more ground and increasing influence, combining efforts, sharing resources, and enriching the discourse with diverse voices and experiences. 2020 has been a sea of change, a time of great and many challenges. Climate change, Brexit, trade deals, biodiversity loss, mental health crisis, tackling racism, COVID-19. These can often feel like insurmountable challenges and that we must prioritise one or another. But the challenges that we face are all interlinked, and to focus on one challenge is to risk compromising on another. Tackling the crises we face and maximising the opportunities they hold will need a change of mindset, a change of behaviour, to set aside competition for collaboration at different levels and scales. We've seen immense collaboration in the face of these crises. Food, farming and environmental campaigners set differences aside to call to protect food standards threatened by post-Brexit trade deals. Farmers across the UK are working together to dismantle mental health prejudice and support one another. We've seen restaurants, farmers and others come together to make sure that vulnerable people did not go hungry during COVID-19 lockdowns. The path to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, to zero hunger, to thriving ecosystems, will pass across fields, over hedges and through farmyards. Food producers have not often been included in conversations and decision-making that impact their lives and livelihoods. It's easy sometimes to think that change is happening to us and that we have no power to control it. When we push past the sweeping ideological narratives that have come to dominate many conversations, we come to individual and communal actions. Herein lies the opportunity for a just transition, to shape a future where food and farming is part of the solution and not part of the problem. Policy making is set to become increasingly driven by people and place, with a need for better, smarter local responses. Global changes are enacted locally. It is vital to create a dialogue that will facilitate partnership between governments, artists, businesses, scientists, neighbours, advocacy organisations, chefs, communities and citizens. We need not just to be active consumers and/or producers, but active citizens when it comes to making positive change. It is our shared responsibility to drive, encourage and call for brave and out-of-the-box thinking, to tell and share our stories, to push the realm of the possible. The Chinese use 2 brushstrokes to write the word crisis. One brushstroke stands for danger, the other for opportunity. John F. Kennedy said, "In a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognise the opportunity." Will we look back in 20 years' time and regret the loss of rural culture amongst the family farming community, the loss of nature, the loss of language and heritage? Or will we look back and think that we grasped the opportunity that crisis offered and did what was best, despite not always easy, for our communities, for the planet, for future generations? Diolch am ymuno â mi. Thank you for joining. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of the conference.